Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We had a wild night of basketball in the NBA last night and a ton of news to dive into. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, I need to start off with this simple yet important question. Why does Joel Embiid hate Darius Garland?
Yeah, right. It feels that way. He had to upstage him just an hour or so later, and in terms of real time, I think it was. But yeah, well, what a night it was. It kind of looked like it was one of those nights where it's like, none of these games are super great, but I want to watch anyway. It turned into a great night of individual performances, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Darius Garland had the season high in points. I believe it was 51.
Yep.
For like an hour. And then Joel Embiid said, no, I'm going to go ahead and drop, what was it, 59 on the
59,
night? My goodness. That's just ridiculous. And in fact, it was, around the NBA, we saw centers in general just go crazy. Anthony Davis at 37 and 18. You had 14 assists for Nikola Jokic. He said, no problem. We've got this Bulls team, so I'm just going to pass to everybody and rack up the assists. But, I mean, Joel Embiid, holy moly. Now, a lot of it was done at the free throw line, 20 of 24 from the free throw line, but still 59 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and 7 blocks. Like that, that's unreal. Especially he had
no one's ever done
points.
it before.
Yeah. Okay, so nobody's ever had that stat
no
line
one's
before.
ever had that. No one's ever had I believe it was I don't know if it's specifically 11 rebounds, but I think it was 50, 10, 8 assists and 7 blocks in the same game. It's the first time it's ever been done. In NBA history. A lot of people are, we went 20 for 24 from the free throw line. Okay, take those away. Take all of them away. Okay, so 39, 11, 8, and 7 blocks. That's still an unreal game.
And
even if you took those away.
What's even more impressive is it's not like he just got hot from behind the arc. And because sometimes a guy will just get hot from behind the 3-point line and they're like, 7 for 9 from 3 or something. And then that suddenly you've got those points added up and that starts to matter. No, he only hit 1 3 on the night. Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. This stat line for him now is against the Utah Jazz, who don't have a whole lot of an interior presence there. But I mean, the 76ers only put up 105 points. He had more than half of his team's points.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he was hitting everything. He was hitting short mid-rangers. He was hitting turnarounds and fallaways. He was getting downhill and going to the basket. He had a bunch of off-balance runners when he'd get fouled. I watched the entirety of this game. The 24 free throw attempts, he flopped his way into probably about 6 free throws. But that's still 18 very legitimate ones. Yeah. The Jazz, as you said, they were just overpowered. They didn't have anything that they could do. This was in a different way, but it was kind of like watching prime Shaq. One was like, all right, we have nothing else we can do but to foul him. Right. And that's like your only hope. He scored, I don't know if you've seen this, he scored 26 of the 76ers' 27 fourth quarter points. All but 1 point in the fourth quarter was Embiid. And they threw every imaginable defensive look at him until it was like they kind of, I think maybe Will Hardy, his Celtics experience played in a little bit with all right, let's just hope now we're going to defend him one-on-one and hope he's too tired to continue to make shots. Right. But he wasn't. He just kept knocking him down in play after play. 5 of his 7 blocks came in the fourth quarter. And this was a close game. They needed all of it. Every one of the points, they needed all those blocks. The Jazz were right there with them all the way to the end. I mean, this was
tied heading into the fourth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was tied with about 2 or 2.5 minutes or so to go in the game. I mean, they needed all of his effort on both ends of the floor. This was, watching it live, one of the most dominating two-way performances I can ever remember watching in my life. That's how good he was. He was just, I mean, obviously unstoppable offensively, but the 5 blocks in the fourth quarter, multiple where he did clean up for teammates, and it was like Colin Sexton on one of them. The Sixers blew a pick and roll coverage. Sexton split the defense, went right down to the rim, and Embiid just came all the way from the other side where I think it was Kelly Olynyk had him spaced out to the corner, and Embiid just left Olynyk and just stuffed it right off the glass, completely pinned it. I mean, it was I don't want to go too crazy, but this was one of the best games I've ever seen anybody play. And I mean, and I'm going all the way back to I watched MJ drop 63 on the
Yeah.
Celtics in the playoffs live.
I think this blows my mind nearly as much as all these other stats. I mean, this is all incredible. But so Joel Embiid made 19 shots on the night. His team in total made 40.
Yep.
So 21 shots were made by not Joel Embiid, and he got 8 assists. How is that possible? How do you get 8? How do you get, and not only do you score 59 points, but you have an assist on nearly half of your team's made baskets like that. A huge scoring game is crazy. A big rebounding game is crazy. A big shot blocking game. But to add that in, that you got an assist on 8 out of 21 made baskets, you got an assist on, like, that would be absurd for even the top level point guards in the NBA.
No, absolutely. And I'll give you 2 more. He had 5 turnovers, none in the second half. He didn't have a single turnover in the second half. And the last one is too. I was hoping that this would go to overtime, just because I was like, I want to see if he can get a quadruple double, because I think he would have come pretty close. I mean, he was a few blocks away, and he only needed 2 more assists. But it was funny, by the end, Tyrese Maxey even said post game, yeah, Doc was calling for pick and rolls, and I was like, why? Let's just give it to Embiid. So I mean, it really was. It was a special night.
Anthony Davis dropped 37 and 18, ho hum, compared to what Joel Embiid did. And then poor Darius Garland, 51 points, 10 of 15 for 3. And everybody's just going to be talking about Joel Embiid. I mean, he had a phenomenal performance. Unfortunately, it came in a loss to the Wolves. The Cavs.
Bananas comeback though. They were down, and they almost came back and got it.
But I mean, that's an incredible performance in and of itself. What we saw Darius Garland do.
Mm-hmm. They had 27 in the fourth quarter.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Just in crazy performances last night around the NBA. You know, Keith, there's games where you see guys and you're like, okay, it's a Wednesday in January. Clearly, you know, some guys are, you know, and then other nights you just see and you go, these are the best athletes on the planet. You know, I mean, there's times where you're just even covering this league, you know, we can get jaded and all that, where you just watch them and you just marvel of what these guys are able to do.
Yeah. So not to turn this into, Lakers Nation too, but I did watch the end of that one when it had ended after the Jazz Sixers. I thought AD did so great on the offensive glass.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
10 offensive boards.
How many was it?
10 offensive boards, more than the Nets team had.
Yeah, and that's and I know there it is. I finally got the box score to pull up. Yeah, they made pretty good shooting night for the Lakers. They shot 48%, and he, of those 47 misses, he grabbed 10 of them. Like, a fifth. that's kind of crazy for one guy, and he's not like a big time offensive rebounder.
He's not
either. Like he's not somebody that's like like Andre Drummond, Enes Kanter, a couple of those guys like that. You could kind of be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it, right, with that. But yeah, I mean, just great game for him, and honestly, a game where they needed it, right? They needed to get a win.
Yeah.
You needed to beat a team that's we'll call the Nets a good team, right? I don't think they're great by any means, but a good team,
but good.
So what's that?
And they're wounded. I mean, no Kyrie Irving, no Ben Simmons. They're missing. And then Nick Claxton got hurt, had an eye contusion, so he was ruled out part of the way through the game. So the Nets really didn't have anybody with any size to throw at Anthony Davis, and he, to his credit, he took advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was kind of an old school AD game. That's the kind of game where right there was all this stuff about should they trade him out there last week, and this is kind of the one where you're like, this is why you kind of can't, right? Like now you can't expect 37 and 18 every single night, but it's the games like this, you just hope you're getting them more than like once a month, maybe once every couple weeks, you get a game like this out of them.
Keith, I'm so torn because I don't know if you saw this in the post game, but Anthony Davis said that he was inspired by the Green Bay Packers performance. He's a big Green Bay Packers fan. He was
That's weird.
inspired by
He's a
the Packers.
Chicago kid. How's he not a Bears fan?
I don't know, but anyway, he somehow he was inspired by the Packers performance.
Okay.
My wife is a Cowboys fan. And so she does not like the Packers at all. It was a bad time in the Lane household last night. We were definitely upset with the officiating and everything in that game. There's, it was not good. And then we get this performance out of Anthony Davis, and I'm thinking, do I have to root for Packers success now in order to have more enjoyable Lakers games? And if so, what effect is that going to have on my marriage? These are the thoughts I'm having now, Keith.
That's the important one, is that last part there. Right? You gotta make sure that part stays healthy overall. But that's funny. Now I'm legitimately flummoxed that he's a Packers fan. I get it. I get Green Bay is very close, and but I've always thought of Anthony Davis as a Chicago kid. But
when he posts to like his Instagram story and stuff, it's like 9 times out of 10, it's about the Packers.
It's like KD in Washington, right? The Commanders. He's a big, but that's where he's from. He's from that area, so that makes a little bit more sense. But I don't know, crazy
Commanders fan.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Golden State Warriors and what's going on here. So the Warriors fall to the Kings. The Kings have been playing better basketball lately. They're now 500, but this drops the Warriors to 5-8 on the season. They have not won a road game yet. They're 0-7 on the road. We've kind of been every once in a while, once a week or so. Hey, are we worried yet about the Warriors? What are we thinking here? Is this time to be worried? Like, you got 27 out of Steph Curry. You got 26 out of Andrew Wiggins. Klay Thompson had 17. It wasn't like a crazy efficient night for the 47% from the field, 34% from three, but not terrible either. 18 from Jordan Poole, and that's not enough to beat the Sacramento Kings. What is this? Just the Kings are a little bit better? Is this we should start to worry about the Warriors? What's the kind of heat check on this situation right now?
Yeah, I'm not as worried about the losing to the Kings part because I think it's for them. It's kind of what you said, is that the Kings are playing better for sure, but with what has been a very favorable schedule, despite the fact that they did already have an East Coast trip. The Warriors they're just not getting it done, like against teams that normally not only would they have beaten these teams, but they would have destroyed these teams. So they lost in a row on that East Coast swing. Hornets, Pistons, Heat, Magic, Pelicans. Now, Hornets, Pistons, and Magic, those are bad teams, right? Heat, they're scuffling along right now, right? They're not playing so hot themselves. And then the Pelicans aren't playing so good either. So that's losses to, actually, matter of fact, when they played all those teams, interestingly enough, all those teams, that ended up being their third win when they lost to those teams. So that's just kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's just not a good spot to be in. I guess never mind. I'm reading that backwards. Sorry. That was the Warriors' third win. The Warriors are stuck on 3 wins. But at any rate, those teams are bad teams. Hornets, Pistons, Magic. Heat not playing so great right now. Pelicans not playing so great either. And then you come back. They win a couple home games against the Kings, a game that maybe they shouldn't have won because they benefited from a non-call at the end of the game. And then, they're playing at the fastest pace in the league. Offense is middle of the pack. Defense has been awful. And I think that's the shocking part, right? Is how bad the defense has been. And yet for me, I'm still not super worried yet, I guess, because I guess I just have that kind of faith in them to figure it out. But they're now 3.5 games out of home court advantage. So obviously, plenty of time they can make that up. But I don't know. It's something feels off with them. My suspicions is it's the bench. Not suspicions. I mean, you can just look at their starting 5 numbers are great. Remove any one member of the starting 5, things start to come down, and then you remove multiple, and it's just brutal what those numbers look like.
Things really start to fall apart quickly for them, and that's been a challenge. It's been a struggle. 18 turnovers against the Kings. That it's hard to win a basketball game when you turn the ball over that much, but still. Just something for us to continue to keep an eye on. This Warriors team, you would expect better from them, and you want to keep saying, well, you know what, they'll turn it on when they need to, and that sort of thing. They're the defending champs. But the longer this goes, the more we have to wonder, is this more than just, hey, they're just not locked in. They're not engaged because this is
Mhm.
the beginning of the season and this is a team that cares about the playoffs. I don't know. And that's something for us to keep an eye on here.
No,
Um,
yeah. Oddly enough, too, like I just pulled it up on Basketball Reference.
mhm.
They're in their losses, they shoot way worse from three. They're 33% in their losses, 39% in their wins. That's not all that uncommon. Couple more turnovers per game in the losses versus the wins. It really is. It really, as so often it does, comes down to do they defend or not?
Mhm.
Right. If you defend, you're going to be okay. They're allowing 111.6 points per game in their wins, 124 per game in their losses. So, I mean, that's not good. You got to get that
No,
figured out.
definitely not. All right, let's talk about the trade front a little bit here. We've got a few stories involving trades. Typically, December 15th, kind of when the trade season really
Yep.
starts up
What a month away.
around around the NBA. So let's kick things off with my Lakers on the trade front. Maybe still interested in Bojan Bogdanovic. Now with the Pistons, got traded there for Kelly Olynyk, who we already talked about a little bit earlier in reference to what Joel Embiid did. But you've got Bojan Bogdanovic with the Detroit Pistons, signs a new deal, and the Lakers may not be totally done on trying to trade for him. So I guess first of all, why is Bojan Bogdanovic still trade eligible despite the fact that he just signed a contract extension?
Yeah, so how it works with extensions is if you extend for the beyond what can be offered in an extended trade, which is a 5% raise off the current salary with 5% raises off of that and 3 years, then you're not trade eligible for 6 months. So because the extension was less than the extended trade, they are able to trade him now. So that's like let's flip it to LeBron, for
Yeah,
example. He did his extension because his extension, not in length, but in terms of raises, is more than what could have been offered in an extended trade. He is not trade eligible for 6 months, which obviously takes us past the trade deadline based on when he signed that extension. In
which is why he can't
Bogdanovic's
be
case,
traded this
he's
year.
exactly
Yeah,
Bogdanovic's case, he is under the extended trade amount, so he can still be traded. No restrictions. It could be traded today. It could have been traded the day after he signed that extension, actually. But yeah, no restrictions at all on trading for him. And I think people have seen like it was a $39 million extension over 2 years, so
mhm.
almost $20 million per season. But it's really only kind of like a 1 year, $22 million extension because it's fully guaranteed for 20 million next season. But the season after that it's 19 million. It goes down on, but it's 19 million and change. It goes
Mhm.
down almost a million, but only 2 million of that is guaranteed. So it's kind of more like a 1 year, $22 million extension than it is the full 2 years. But if he keeps playing the way he is, you're happy to pay him 20 and then 19 million because he's been playing great.
Yeah, he's been playing very well. I'm not as surprised that it's not just going to be the Lakers that are interested in him. There'll be other teams around the NBA interested. The Pistons may just decide to keep him, depending on what they're looking to do here. But if they feel like there's good value that they can have on the trade market, maybe it's something they look at doing. How do the Lakers get there in a trade? Is this a must be Russell Westbrook situation? Can you stack up Patrick Beverly and Kendrick Nunn? What's the path for the Lakers? What does their offer look like?
Yeah, because he's not one. I mean, Russ, obviously, right? You could get Russ and some stuff. I was teasing you a little bit this morning because somebody, obviously a Lakers fan, dropped in your mentions on Twitter a trade that he thought was very fair, but it's Sadiq Bey was a throw in this
We
trade just to
we
give
we
us.
never propose unfair trades. No fan base ever does
Yeah,
that. You
yeah,
know that.
yeah. That was like when Celtics fans were like, "Hey, can we get this guy for the Hayward disabled player exception? He fits inside it." And I was like, "That dude was drafted second like 2 years ago. Like, no, you can't get him just because he fits inside there." But anyway, Russ is obviously right. That's where your first thought goes to, and that could return a bunch of depth for the Lakers too, because there's a pretty big imbalance between Russ and Bogdanovich, about 28 million or so in salary. But because Bogdanovich is making under 20 million, your other idea of like, hey, if we put Beverly in none, or Beverly in a few of the minimum salary guys or whatever, yeah, you can get there that way too. So that's another way. So now that becomes of, all right, do we feel good about where we're at with our guard depth, so we can part with a couple of these guys to get a wing? But I think the bigger thing for the Lakers with this would be, do we want the 20 million next year, which completely takes you out of the cap space
Right.
derby unless you make other moves. But that's it. You'd be out of it, and you'd be a mid-level exception team. But just let me, without looking, let me throw it at you. What do you think Bogdanovic's like shooting splits are right now, if you had to guess?
Oh, they're up there. I know. He's I'm guessing he's somewhere in the 50-40 range.
50.5 from the field, 43 from three,
43.
and 92% from the line. And then 92% from the line's on 4.5 attempts per game. So it's not like he's shooting like 2 free throws a night.
Right. He's getting there
either. Also, at age 34 or 33, he'll be 34 next year. He is at 20.3 points per game. That would be a career high for Bojan Bogdanovic.
And that's actually the problem for me from the Lakers perspective.
Okay.
It's not the points, it's the age.
Sure.
If you're going to give up, assuming the Pistons, they're going to want first round draft capital and all that, and of course we all know what draft picks you're talking about with the Lakers. Mm-hmm. If that's going to be the price, then that's like you're getting a guy who you're not going to be able to turn into future assets down the road, most likely. Right? You're not going to
are not real great ones.
Right. I mean, 2-3 years from now, let's say LeBron sails off into the sunset 2 years from now, whatever. And Anthony Davis, when you decide what you're going to do there, Bogdanovic, even if you keep him past this contract, he's 35, 36, are you going to be able to start a rebuild by saying, hey, we're going to put him on the market and see if we can recoup some of the draft capital that we lost? That's pretty unlikely. And so that's the challenge for me if I'm the Lakers and I'm looking at this trade. Great fit, great player, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to use him for anything more than just the next couple of seasons. And if I'm giving up picks in 2027, 2029, that's where I've got some real concern.
No, you need to be able to trade similarly to what the Pistons gave up to get him, which is like a veteran player. And then maybe, we'll toss in, I don't know, one of the kids-ish guys, right? If it was like, if the difference was like, hey, we'll do Beverly and none, but we got to have Max Christie too.
Sure.
All right, sure. Then do it. I think what's interesting, right? One of the other teams mentioned for him is the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
For the Suns, it makes a lot more sense to me to maybe throw a first round pick at Detroit, especially if Bogdanovic keeps playing at this level, because the Suns, that could be the difference between we got back to the finals or not. I don't think he alone lifts the Lakers that high. So I'm with you. Under no circumstances would I give up a first round pick if I was the Lakers for Bogdanovic, even though I love him and I think he's great. I've been a huge fan of his for years now. And I've probably spent he's starting to rival Danilo Gallinari from back in the day for like a good team should trade for this guy.
Yeah.
The king of that for me is Harrison Barnes, has been the king of that list forever. But it's but yeah, I really think it's it's just for the Lakers just where they're at right now. Yeah, if they were much better, all right, if you really thought this was going to be the difference, sure, go and get him. But yeah, let's see. But yeah, I knew he was playing well. I didn't know he was playing quite that well.
He's been very good, and he'll have a chance to show out against the Lakers on Friday. They play the Pistons.
True.
I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit, if they decide to go down this path, if they're able to get something solid. I think they probably can get a first for him at this point, which is impressive because
I think they're going to get more for him than what they gave up for him if they choose to trade him at all.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, I absolutely think that they will, and they should, because everybody in general, people saw him as a bargain at the price that the Pistons paid to get him. But the question is, how much can they then flip him for? And if it's not a first, are they then willing to do it or not? Anyway, it's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch. If the Lakers can find something that's not too prohibitive in terms of cost, if it's seconds, if it's a Max Christie or something like that, maybe they look at doing it. I just don't know if I would go. I wouldn't do a first. So interested there.
Not for the Lakers. No, you do a first if you're a team where Bogdanovic puts us over the top.
Sure.
to be a title contender. Just to close the book on this too, in case people were like, you're talking about he's playing well, he's on this good contract, you gave up nothing for him. Why would the Pistons trade him? Well, they're 3-11. They stink. And like the idea was hopefully he can help us take that next step. And I think this is probably projecting a little bit forward of, yeah, Detroit's probably another year towards the bottom. So at that point, you start looking at him being like, by the time they're really ready to win, is he really still going to be a big part of it? So you start to look towards, all right, what can we get that maybe fits the timeline a little bit better?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump over to the aforementioned Phoenix Suns, who are still re-engaged on Jae Crowder trade talk. Is there maybe a 3-team trade out there that could work with Bogdanovich and Jae Crowder going to it? Because I don't see Jae Crowder as the Detroit Pistons as a landing spot for him.
Sure.
But maybe you can work something out if there is that interest there. There's going to be some interest in Crowder around the NBA, and the Suns I think could use the help, particularly with what's going on with Cam Johnson and his injury.
Yeah, the team that keeps like popping in my head for Crowder, where I think it would make a ton of sense, would be the Milwaukee Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there could be something there. It's interesting. I know it's I don't want to step on the show here because I know I think our next one is Grayson Allen in the Bucks. But I think could you do something where built around Crowder to the Bucks, Allen to the Pistons, Bogdanovich to the Suns? That could be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of like that idea. Give them, because the idea behind Bogdanovich was another guy who can shoot, create a little bit of offense for you. Allen's a different look at that because he's a little bit smaller, but they don't have a ton of guard firepower coming off their bench right now. Just shouts to Jaden Ivey, having seen him twice for entire games against the Celtics in the last week. He is really, really playing well. It looks really, really good. So, yeah, I mean, that gives you a really kind of fun 3-guard look between Cade Cunningham, Grayson Allen, and Jaden Ivey potentially there. So maybe there could be something there. That one popped right into my head immediately because we know the Bucks have been a team that's been kind of in on Crowder, and Grayson Allen direct to the Suns probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. All right, let's talk a little bit about that too. Why are the Bucks looking to move on from Grayson Allen at this point?
Yeah, I think for them it's just they've got other guys who play at that spot. Can really kind of play that guard spot. They'll get Pat Connaughton back. Eventually, Chris Middleton is working his way back now. You signed Jordan Nwora to a 2-way deal. So that kind of, 2 smaller 3 kind of look there. They also really like the rookie they drafted, Marjon Beauchamp, who he's been starting games when they kind of sit everybody and don't play any of the regulars. He starts and he's got a long way to go. He's got a lot to figure out, but he's a young kid, so of course he does. So I think that's where the Bucks are looking at, and they're probably saying, "Hey, Allen's $8 million is probably our most reasonable matching piece of salary in a trade." So that's probably why they're just feeling out the market for what could it be for him.
And a lot of this is very preliminary. Again, most see the NBA trade season really kicking off December 15th. So we do have some time. Doesn't mean they couldn't make a trade here. Teams can still do deals right now, but this could just be kind of the preliminary stuff, getting a sense of, hey, where's everybody at? Just checking in. And then teams will start to deal with some more concrete things in the next month or so.
Exactly. That's a lot of what happens right now. Now it's, hey, let's set the groundwork and see, because what you don't want to do, is, you're calling up a team, hey, you interested in Grayson Allen? Like, no, we've got 1 million guards already. We don't need another one. So you want to be able to focus in on, all right, hey, we know this team's kind of interested, let's see where we go, and let's see if we can find a match. This is also kind of to loop back into the Crowder piece. This is where like those 3-team trades can start to develop, because you start talking it now and it's like, all right, we can't deliver you the value you need. So who could be a partner we could rope in here to get you the value you need for this? And that's where that could come together. And but to close the loop on the Crowder stuff is why the Suns are re-engaging is because Cam Johnson's out and he's going to be out for a while. We talked about that already. And we threw out there, like, could you maybe try to bring Jae Crowder back into the fold? And it's clear that's not happening. So it's, all right, let's see what we can get in the trade for Crowder to really kind of fill those Cam Johnson minutes.
Right. Which makes sense for them. If they're going to move Crowder anyway, and now you've got a need, might as well try to speed up that process and see if you
Yeah.
can get that done.
I kind of like that though, man. I think we might have, on the fly,
Call it in.
yeah, right. I'll reach out to some folks and we'll get that done
We'll
because
see if
that
we
could
can figure
happen
that out.
right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that doesn't
Okay,
need to
we'll
wait.
we'll call up
Yeah.
James Jones and we'll get this thing going.
Yep.
Let's finish off the show with unfortunately some injuries here.
Every time we record,
I know we
ugh,
just got to finish on such a negative. Maybe I should just start with.
we'll
I don't
start
know.
that way. Yeah.
I don't. But then I'm just down because we start with all the negativity. I don't know what the best way to do this is, but let's get into it. Cody Martin out 4 weeks, knee surgery. How close are we to the Hornets saying, let's pack it in and start dreaming of Wembanyama?
Yeah, owners of the longest losing streak in the league at 8 games. They're 3-11. They did just get LaMelo Ball back. Terry Rozier returned recently as well. So, I do think they're in a spot where, yeah, let's see. Maybe the Hornets can, get some stuff, moving in the right direction ish. But I mean, Martin's out for 4 weeks. Gordon Hayward, who knows what's going on there? We don't even know timeline on him. So yeah, it's just a mess for Charlotte. I think it's getting close to time where you start thinking about, boy, LaMelo throwing lobs to Wembanyama. Like that's fun. Let's at least start to dream a little bit, maybe. So yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if we're a month from now talking about how LaMelo's not playing back to backs or something like that.
This is just my kind of prediction here. The Hornets wind up with the number 2 pick, and then we get into all these Scoot Henderson
Oh
with
man,
LaMelo. How does that
yeah,
work?
how does
All
that
those
work?
discussions.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did you see the Scoot Henderson thing about how he didn't shake hands with
No,
Wembanyama? Yeah, Mark Spears had it. They did like sounds almost like it was like a boxing style like press
like a
conference
face
where
off.
yeah, like that with the two of them before they played
Right.
those exhibition games, and they exchanged jerseys, and then Scoot Henderson basically just left. And he was like, I'm not going to shake hands with him because I wanted to go out there and kill him the next night, which personally I love.
Yeah.
Like, give me that all day long. Now,
Give me the Magic and Bird vibes coming into
yeah,
the season. Let's do
yeah.
that.
When it's done and over with, shake hands. Wish the guy well and move
Sure.
on. And I don't know what happened there, but yeah, before a game, guys don't need to be hugging and all that stuff. Like I get it, show respect, but like yeah, I don't mind when a kid's got out there. He's got a little bit of like, nah, man, I'm down. I'm here to beat you.
I'm here to
Like,
win.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That doesn't
right.
bother me.
That's right. Old school. Let's go.
Yeah.
Stop being friends with everybody. Come
I
on.
like that prediction though, because that's absolutely what would happen.
Yeah.
It'd be like, could you draft? You got to trade out of that pick,
Right.
right? It would be the conversation, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we would have endless conversations about that and what would happen there. Cade Cunningham out for a week, left shin soreness, and that's obviously not something you want to mess around with if you're the Pistons. Not worth him going out there and aggravating anything. But like you said, this team's not winning right now, and this is a big blow for them. Now he's out for this road trip for them coming up, which includes a game against my Lakers. It's not good for these Pistons, and maybe pushes them more towards a Bogdanovich trade if they keep losing, because they can just say, you know what, we can get value for him. We're not winning games right now anyway. Let's not accidentally win a game or two. Let's just kind of adjust on the fly and see if we can get value here, and then get a nice high draft pick.
Yeah, they were recording this on Monday. They've got a home game against Toronto, then a pretty long and difficult West Coast trip: Clippers, Lakers, Kings, Nuggets, Jazz, and Suns. So there's not a whole lot of winnable games on that trip for the Pistons. My guess is they'll win one of them at least, right? But that takes you all the way through Thanksgiving. Wouldn't be a total surprise to see him miss the entirety of that trip, just to play it safe and be really sure. But we'll see. As of right now, he's set to miss the Clippers and Lakers games at the beginning of the trip, and we'll see if he returns Midwest Coast swing.
So I don't know if this is a factor for the Pistons or not, but in general, this is the type of situation that we've talked about tanking teams taking advantage of this season, in terms of everybody's trying to lose games for Wembanyama, and these are the teams that might be doing this kind of stuff. This is a situation where if a team has decided, let's try to increase our draft lottery odds as much as we can, this is where teams can kind of prolong how long a player is out. Say, hey, we just really want to make sure you're 100%. Why don't you take an extra couple of games off?
Yep.
We don't want to risk it. they'll be more cautious with situations like this. Again, don't want to say that's for sure what the Pistons are doing here. I think it's too early to say that, but this is the type of situation to keep an eye on throughout the season with the teams near the bottom where they might opt to hold players out for an extra game or so.
Yeah, this is the example of when I say organizations tank,
Yeah.
players and coaches don't. Because if Cade Cunningham's out there playing, he's playing to win the game. And Dwayne Casey is going to be coaching to win that game.
Yeah.
That's why when you'll see something like, oh man, what a bad turnover for Cade Cunningham late in the game, and then you get a bunch of people reply to you with the tank gifts, and it's like,
Right.
that's not. He didn't throw the ball in the third row because he's thinking about getting Victor Wembanyama. Like, he just made a bad play.
Yeah.
But when it's like, there's some Shin soreness, we're already away from home on the West Coast. Yeah, let's just sit out a few extra games. Those are the kind of situations where you start to say, let's tank. And then the other obvious one is, which Detroit could happen with them again, right? Could be, let's move Bogdanovich. Let's move, a couple of these other veteran guys who aren't going to be a part of our next good team. That's obviously the other way you set up to tank for sure. So,
in fact, that leads me to another thought. Could the Pistons moving Bogdanovich be the first shot in a tank war?
Could be.
We could see other teams start to go, oh, we need to offload talent too because we need to try to keep pace. Like, we could, like, as much as we see teams at the top, loading up, oh, this team made a trade, so now we've got to go make a move and do something and try to counter that. We may see a similar effect, but at the bottom with teams trying to move talent off of their roster so they can lose more games this season.
It could be. It could be. And if the Jazz, they've hit their first bump in the road now. They've lost a couple in a row. They're 10-5 after the hot start. They let's say they start to level out and play like 500 or just below, over the next month, that could be starting to see a team like that start to say, go. Now, they might already put too much distance.
I think they might have.
Yeah, they're already like 7 games out of the top spot in that range. But, I mean, that's nothing that you trade everybody and then sit anybody good for, a span of 3 or 4 weeks. Couldn't make up it. With this much time left. But yeah, I don't, let me be very clear. I don't think that's what Utah's going to do. No. I think Utah right now is content to say, hey, Minnesota, let's see if you can kind of do this for us because you're dysfunctional and a mess.
Did you see Danny Ainge was like acting like almost offended that anyone would suggest that he built a team to lose and all this stuff? I'm like, really? Come on. I know he can't say, oh yeah, this team was put together because what my sister's not saying to the team, but come on.
Well, what he should get offended by is people should be like, you don't understand how to do this the correct way. you build these teams that are just a little too good, right? Like that Celtics team that one year where then they were finally like, fine, we'll trade for Isaiah Thomas because, basically he's being given away. And like, we have a chance to actually make the playoffs and the Nets are rapidly falling apart. So we'll let them tank for us. But yeah, it's funny. I honestly do think too, I think, if Danny Ainge ever did like fully bottom it out, it would be one of the shortest full-on tank jobs ever because he's way too competitive. He would get so angry like at the losing every night stuff where like he'd be like, nope, I gotta turn this around and get right back in it. But yeah, I mean, the only time they did it the even remotely correct way, they got aided because Paul Pierce broke his foot. And he was by far and away the best player on the team. And then that year, they got punished and pushed all the way back to 5th in the draft and ended up with trading the pick ultimately for Ray Allen, which then led to the KG trade and everything was fine. But it was, that's the only couple times they've really intentionally like full on said like, all right, we're going to bottom it out. But yeah, that's what he should get upset with. Hey, let's end on a high note though.
Yeah. Well, I've got one more low note.
All right, hit the one more low note. And then we'll
so the low note, Omer, you're at 7.
Oh yeah,
out 3 months with ankle surgery. Yeah. You've got Dwayne Dedmon there. Like, how big of a deal is this for Miami and their rotation?
Right now, the way things have gone, I don't think it's a huge deal because he's been out since the first preseason game. But their plan was he was going to play, and there was a thought he may start because remember we've talked about it a lot with the Heat. They don't have a 4 on their roster. I think their plan was to play big and play Bam Adebayo at the 4 and start Yurt 7 next to him. I think that was going to be the way they were going to go. I talked to a lot of people around the league. I talked to a few people with the Heat who you have those conversations in the preseason and nobody wants to give anything away, but they're like, you might see some of that, which to me was like, okay, you're definitely at least considering it. So I think it's, it's a big deal in the sense of we may not see this team the way they envisioned it to be. And Yurt 7 was playing pretty good at the end of last year. Looked like a legitimate guy who could play in the NBA as a, at least as a high end backup center. Miami, just as good as anybody, if not better, does a great job developing those guys at the end of the roster. This injury, though, did an actual transaction sequence. Which we haven't had much of right since the offseason, but it was they released Drew Smith, who is a guard who was on a two-way with the team, and they signed Orlando Robinson, who's a center, to a two-way contract. So he'll come in, replace Smith to give them that little bit extra size on the roster up front, because it was really kind of deadman. And then they've actually played Udonis Haslem real minutes in a couple games because they haven't had that size. Deadman was out, so it was like, all right, we can't just play Bam 48 minutes. We got to get somebody else on the floor. Now they'll have Orlando Robinson that they can throw in. I know a lot of people are kind of like, it's two-way guys, who really cares? I would not be surprised if 5 months from now we're talking about it was actually kind of good. Maybe somebody to keep an eye on, Orlando Robinson, because that's just what Miami does.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. They find players. They unearth talent. They've been really good at that. They've got some examples of that on the roster right now with guys like Max Strus and even Duncan Robinson. As much as people may loathe his contract now, they've managed to find players, which is a credit to them. All right, hit your high note. What do you have for us?
So two things, both I think kind of fun. One is we saw Dwight Howard sign in Taiwan. Carmelo Anthony maybe. Another team in Taiwan has their ownership is pushing to bring Carmelo Anthony in to play for them. It's oddly enough, it's a newer league in Taiwan. It's early in their second year of play, and it's the two teams that finished in last and next to last place last year. They one signed Dwight Howard and the other one signed Carmelo Anthony. So they said the report out of Taiwan was ownership has greenlit pursuit of Carmelo Anthony. So we'll see if that's something he even wants to do. He may want to say, yeah, I'll go over there and play a few games and make probably would be pretty good money to, get my work in, right? If nothing else, it's probably slightly better than, his average pickup run right now. But
we talked about those contracts will likely have opt-outs to where if an NBA team comes calling, they can go.
Yeah. But the fun note with Carmelo Anthony, his son, I think it's Kion, I think is how you say it. His son received a scholarship offer from Syracuse.
Oh, nice.
That's just kind of a fun story there to close us out.
Full circle.
His dad's alma mater, who led to the national title. I have that's one of those that them winning that national title is one of those weird things where I know exactly where I was and who I was with, because I was with a Syracuse alum, recent graduate of Syracuse, and he was absolutely losing his mind during that game, and then he was in tears at the end when they won. So I very much remember that game.
Little extra meaning when it's your team like that, for sure.
No doubt.
All right. Well, that about wraps it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to the show. If you're over on the YouTube channel, make sure you do subscribe. And, of course, over on Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star rating and review. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.